and then I'll get over to you when we're done, because I want to make sure you get this part here. And I maybe do something once we get to the framework as well. So let me pull this back up. So I want to talk about what I call diversity, equity, inclusion from the inside out. You saw that as the title. Please write down these two statements. Statement number one is this: diversity, equity, inclusion is a journey, not a destination. Please write that down. Okay, diversity, equity, inclusion is a journey, not a destination. Is there anyone that may be able to give me some thoughts of what you think about what that means, or expound on it? And it could be anyone, someone that's here online with me, or someone within the audience. But if you're in the audience, I got to get somebody to maybe repeat it here so I can hear you. But what does that mean when you hear it? Diversity, equity, inclusion is a journey, not a destination. What does that sound like to you? Anybody want to share some thoughts? All right. I see somebody running up.
All right. It's not something that has an ending. It's an ongoing process. You have to keep going and never stop.
You got to keep working on it. Absolutely. It's a process that we want to work on and make it a part of ingraining into the culture. Yeah. It is. So what I'm saying is, just like customer service is something we always do, just like, student relations is something we always do. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, we want that to be as much of the culture as everything else. So it's just like something that not what we do, but who we are. Like student relations is who we are now. Our goal is to do our best every day. And I know some days it's probably more easier than others to do, to focus on student relations or fellow staff to staff relations across the board. All right. And another thing I want to share with you, you see me put it in the form of equity, but I've since changed it. And that is diversity, equity, inclusion is not a head issue, it's a heart issue. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. All right. This topic, because of the way it's been positioned in our nation, and even globally to some extent, is more about the heart than the head, because I'm not going to jump ahead of myself. There's a reason why I'm saying this. I'll share with you in just a few moments. And what we've seen in the organizations we've been able to consult, the organizations, because we're different in the way we do things. We don't just come in and just start exploding in on implicit bias and microaggressions and all that kind of stuff. We really are big on focusing in on that's okay. Good to see you, Stephanie. And the heart issue when it relates to this topic. So let me give you a few things, and I want to put them out there, and I would love to get your thoughts on it. All right. The first thing is we need to become diversity ready. Now, let me explain what this is. All right. Diversity ready is steep, and just write this down. Is something that, and I know Stephanie's working on things at the school, but it's steep in what I call safe space conversations. Please write that down. All right. Safe space conversations. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is that a lot of times when we do diversity, the first thing we go for is training. And that's okay. Training is good. I think it's fantastic. I'm a trainer, of course, I think it's good. I'm a coach, of course. But with this particular topic, what we need to do is we need to have conversations. We call them equity or diversity conversations in our space, where we're talking about it and this is important, giving people a chance to be honest and come clean as far. There's some things I just don't understand. Now that's not always going to be in a big audience. Sometimes it's more individual, like be honest with you, we kind of pioneered diversity coaching. We give people an opportunity to come into a space with a coach, and we just talk about it. It's not trying to do anything crazy or try to throw this at people and throw this at people. It's like, where are you in this process? What are your thoughts on it? And I appreciate the fact that over the years, we've had people who say, I just don't understand. I'm struggling, and that's fine. And then we can just talk through it and walk through it. Because now, when I be going through a diversity readiness process, now when we talk about the bigger items relating to diversity, then there's already been some movement towards individuals, understanding what this is really all about. I know this one company that we know of, and we came in late in the game, but they had spent like $4 million on all this training and all this development. And 4 years, 3 years later, they were still. And I said, man, you guys just dove in and you didn't take the time to really think about this. And so we did a more relaxed approach, conversational, relationship building, meeting with senior leaders, meeting with staff members, pulling together affinity groups, and everyone's involved with it. And then what you find is that now that organization is on the track and doing some great things because they took it, they were ready. So I just want you to know that is a term that I want to put out there. And that is really connected to conversations. I put this picture up with young folks because we've had a lot of, this is not related to diversity, but a lot of success with young people because we have a formula that we use called RID, relationships, identity, and dreams. That's how we make the connection. We focus on the relationship with those young people. And no matter where we go, we always make the connection. Because and then the identity, helping them identify who they are, and the dreams. And our big thing on dreams is a student with a dream is a student with a future. And that, you know, we kind of, but then we have a second part, student with a dream is fueled by a caring adult who believes in their dreams. All right. So we need to become diversity ready. That's just one thing I want you to think about. And then we need clarity on what the goal of DEI is. And please write this down. Diversity is about education and awareness that leads to cultural change. So when an organization says, we want to do diversity, we want to have a diversity program, you're going to see this in a moment. What we have found, I'm just being honest, some people who don't understand what it is will feel like it's more personal, or they'll take it personal. It's not, you know, and I'm going to share a slide in a moment to kind of highlight what I mean by that. And what people don't realize is there's nothing personal about any of this. It's cultural. It's about the culture of our organization. What do we want our organization to represent based upon the population that we serve? So be it a school, be it a corporation, be it a nonprofit organization, be it a college or a university, when people come in from all these diverse backgrounds, do they feel valued? Do they feel welcome? Do they feel appreciated? Do they feel like they're making contributions? Do they feel like their voice is being heard? Things like that, which historically for some groups that has not been the case, their voices have not been heard. So it's creating this whole thing. Okay, we need to educate and bring about an awareness that leads to the change in the cultures. All right. So we need clarity. That leads me to this. And please write this one down, because this is where some folks, I'm not saying anybody in this room is dealing with this, but I've seen it over and over again. All right. DEI is not a personal attack. It's not saying that a person is this. They're not saying that a person is a racist. It's not saying anything. It's about societal and organizational culture. That's what it's all about. You know, I'm working with this group out in the West Coast, pretty big group, and they're there now. They weren't there in the beginning. They struggled with this thing. They were going back and forth. People think I'm a racist. And then I said, to one of the leaders of this organization, I said, do you think that this, and you got to keep in mind, Coach D is a little hilarious. I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but sometimes I just say things because I just want to be honest. And I said to this person, I said, do you think that this entire diversity, equity, inclusion conversation is about you? The entire nation is having a conversation because they think that you are a certain type of a person. It has nothing to do with you as an individual. It has to do with what's going on in organizations that can help people feel marginalized. And let's keep in mind, I'm a man of color, so it's easy to look at me and say, Black, it's not just being Black. I got one organization working with this gender. It's women that are being marginalized like crazy. And we're trying to get the gentlemen in there to understand, this is a corporation, that the way that you are operating is so offensive to these ladies. You know what I mean? This is not a guy's club. You got women in here that are leading departments, and we're trying to get them to make the shift. So I'm just saying that, you know, it's not, you know, diversity is not a personal attack. It's about societal and organizational change. And then this is one of my consultants, Pierre Campbell, who's a phenomenal consultant, does some amazing work. And it really, and he says it like this: DEI is a human relations issue. Please write that down. That's the fourth of these considerations. It's a human relations issue. It's how we relate to each other as people. Okay, and so that's a key point. Have any of you ever heard of Dr. Tommy Smith? Does that name ring a bell to anyone? Dr. Tommy Smith. I want to do something, and this was this will spark your understanding who Dr. Smith is. He's the guy that stood in the Olympics. I don't know if you can see my hand, and he had his hand in a fist up in the air. Do anybody not? Do you remember that now? In the
Yes.
the 68 Olympics? Yeah. All right. So I had a chance to meet Dr. Smith in Washington, D.C. He was doing a lecture. He actually just wrote a children's book. And check this out. I asked him, I said, Dr. Smith, what were you thinking when you did that? Like, you know, that was a defining moment in your life. And it's a moment that changed the world almost. What were you thinking? You know what he said? It was so powerful. He said the same thing that Pierre said. He said, I was trying to humanize the issue. He said, I was trying to get people to understand this is about a human being, about people, and about a person. And so I said, I had a moment because of the fame of the Olympics to do it, and I just decided to do it. And he came there with the goal of doing it, you know, and he put that glove on and he did it, and history remembers him for it. And I love how he said humanizing. So it doesn't matter what a person's, you know, social, their position, you know, LGBTQ, you know, person of color, you know, gender, or whatever category we're looking at when it comes to diversity, we're dealing with the human issue. And I think once we start to see that, then it makes this whole DEI thing a different conversation. It's not about what's taking place in the news. It's not about the latest incident that went down, because that starts to cause the entire nation to go into a frenzy. What it's about is how do we see this topic within our great organization, and to kind of shift gears just a little bit, give your great organization a hand clap. Come on and give your school a hand clap, because that's right. You are who you are. You know what I mean? You can't, it is not about somebody else's house. Run DMC had it right. It's about our house. All right. I got to get a high five and get somebody a high five. Say, this is our house, baby. Come on, get somebody a high five and tell us this is our house, baby. This is our house, baby. That's right. And in our house, this is how we're going to do things. Okay. So I just wanted to record that little bit there. I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to talk. I want to record this part too, because this is the two big ones. And then I'm going to give you a break for about 10 minutes or so, 12 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll conclude. But I do want to talk about this big two real quick, because when you talk about diversity, we've all heard of these before, but I'm going to give my spin on it. All right. So that you can see that these two, it's almost like if you were doing a strategy, if we can address these two things, man, we will be 90% ahead of the game. So when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, I'm going to give you some strategies based upon the the diversity framework, but I want to share just the two that are a little bit of a challenge and can help us. The first one is implicit bias, right? Have there been any training on this topic yet? Because I know a lot of people do train to it. Have y'all, yes, no, maybe so?
Yes, I did. I did some at the beginning of the school year.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie. Good. So implicit bias and microaggressions. Okay. Now, what I want you to understand is we all have biases. Every human being on the planet does. I'm going to share Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt in just a moment. We have biases. All right. And Coach D has biases. You know, Coach D has biases. You know, I have a story I want to share, but it's going to take, stories go too long, so I don't want to share a story, but it's a story about these kids we were working with from Perth Amboy, New Jersey. I'll say it real quick, up in the Pocono Mountains, because I was working with a youth group, a friend of mine was, and we were bringing them together to do some life skills training up in the Poconos. And my kids, you know, basically came from the suburbs of Media, Pennsylvania. And these kids that came with my friends group, they came from Perth Amboy, New Jersey. They came with their pants down to the knee caps. They had the music blast and they had a whole look. I'm the one that coordinated it. And I said, man, we got some work to do. Now I'm just telling you what I said. All right, this is many, many, many years ago. I got some work to do. So we're out on the basketball court playing basketball. And I'm like, I'm gonna show all these kids how to play basketball, you know? And I went and made a move and I did a spin move and I went up in the air and my kneecap just went kaplow. And next thing you know, my patella ruptured and my kneecap was sitting in my thigh. I'm just being honest with you. It was ugly. The kids from Media, Pennsylvania, my kids looked at me. You all right? I said, well, it's evident that I'm not. I'm sitting there with my kneecap up in my leg. The kids from Perth Amboy ran over, scooped me up, and rushed me to the infirmary. Let's give our kids a hand clap, man. Kids, we sometimes want to put kids in the box, but we don't know. Man, sometimes our kids are just amazing. And so they got me there. My kids for me, they never showed up. I'm working with this group. I'm inspiring these young folks. Not a one of them come over and see how, and I know they cared about me. That's not the point. But I'm saying that, Coach, in that case, okay, there was a bias. Let's talk about this let's let an expert tell you a little bit more about this. And then after she's done, we'll take a break and we'll come in and conclude, okay? Let's listen to Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt. You're gonna like her. She has a book called Biased. It's an intense book, but it's one worth studying, all right? It's a very good book. And she's from Stanford University. When she talks about—
Please welcome Stanford Professor of
Cause
Psychology
y'all hear her okay?
and
Thumbs
the
up.
Upper Genius Grant Awardee,
Can you hear?
Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to tell you a story. I'm waiting for Iris to appear. This is Iris, okay? Check Iris out. She's 28 years old and she lives in Los Angeles. She has a pet fish named Columbo and she's working on her master's degree. She also has a brown belt in Taekwondo. Now, I want you to answer this to yourself silently. Which one is Iris? How many of you said this one? Raise your hand if you said that. Okay, what about this one? Okay, well, the second one is right. Did any of you have trouble finding Iris? It's okay to be honest. You had trouble? Okay, all right. I have another story for you. This is Joy. And Joy is 31 years old and she lives in Boston. She works as an administrator. She has a dog named Willie and she loves horror movies. Her best friend is her sister, Kate. Now, let's do this again. Which one is Joy? Okay, if you thought this one, you've got the right Joy. All right. And here's the thing, if you got Joy right, there's a better chance that you're Asian. And if it was easy for you to find Iris, there's a good chance that you're white. So what we just demonstrated here is a phenomenon that exists across countries, across cultures, across ethnic groups, and it's called the other race effect. The reality is that typically we all have trouble distinguishing faces of people from races other than our own. And it makes sense, right? If you think about it, most of us simply have less experience with faces from other races. We see them less frequently at family dinners, at our primary schools, in our hometowns, and so forth. But this isn't just about our environment. The other race effect is actually wired into our brains. The act of perceiving faces is critical to our ability to function as humans. So this highlighted area you see here is the brain fusiform face area, or FFA, one of multiple places in the bottom back of the brain that helps us to distinguish faces. The FFA helps us to differentiate the familiar from the unfamiliar, the friend from the foe. And over the past few years, working with my team at Stanford University, we've shown that the FFA actually becomes more active. Its neurons firing more vigorously when people see faces of their own race. When they see faces from other races, though, the neurons are less active. So what's happening is this. Our experiences are actually tuning our neurons. Our brains are being wired by the people that we surround ourselves with. So it's not just in our minds, It's actually right there in our neural passages, the connections that make it possible for us to categorize familiar, unfamiliar, similar, different, us, them. And this process of categorization doesn't stop at simple identification. It extends to the beliefs and the feelings we attribute and assign to people with certain characteristics. Whether we like it or not, we all carry beliefs and feelings about all sorts of social groups, beliefs that influence our perceptions and our actions, even when we're not aware of it. This is the definition of unconscious bias. It's like the orchestra example Blessing told us about. Now check this out. Take a look at these images. Researchers have found that simply seeing images like this can intensify stereotypes. Seeing a picture of a male police officer, for example, makes you think that men should be police officers and that women should not be. And when our stereotypes are reinforced, even in that simple, subtle way, it can lead women to actually perform differently. For example, let's take another look at joy.